Hi, I'm Andrew Wallace, and welcome to the We've Got a Problem podcast, where each week we explore inspiring stories of struggle, success, and solutions to prevalent problems and how our guests have turned a problem into an opportunity. This week I'm talking to Chris Chapman, a coach, podcaster, and motivational speaker who proudly proclaims his purpose is to inspire others to reach their full and true potential. Chris, welcome to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that introduction, Andrew. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, can't wait. So, I always start with your start. How did you get to here? I mean, I know you've got an 8 to 5, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but you're relatively young. How did you get to wanting to talk to people about motivation, inspiration, entrepreneurship, all those kinds of things?
Yeah, man, that's a really good question. So I've always been really interested in hearing people's successful stories of how they got from point A to point B. I think a lot of times people document the destination, but they don't really broadcast the in between. So I've always been interested in that segment, which is why I did start my own podcast about 3 years ago, Next Level Minds. And then lately I've kind of shifted that into more of a coaching and speaking platform because I was told by a mentor of mine, hey man, take the information you have and give it to the people that need it. And so because of that information, I kind of drifted into more coaching others, mainly folks that are relatively younger. I'm relatively younger as well. So I'm coaching primarily individuals that are relatively close to the same age as myself.
Sure.
And then from the speaking side of things, I speak on topics about how to build relationships, how to position yourself effectively, how to communicate. And then I also have a presentation on how to match your goals and your habits together. And I think all of that's just information that people need to hear, especially if you're just graduating college, because
I was just going to say, that's the time when you need it.
Go back to 2020 as well. And, this whole virtual learning. I mean, if you graduated in 2020, you spent the entire last year of your senior year just locked in a room, probably learning, right? And so you missed out on this huge gap of like how to communicate with others and how to build relationships effectively. So I think the quicker you can master those things, building relationships and communicating, I think the more successful you'll be at an earlier age.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's a crucial market for these kinds of things, and something that I think I for sure would have benefited from when I was graduating from college, even though I graduated under entirely different circumstances. I mean, I went through a time I graduated in 2006, so I'm quite a bit ahead, but the fact was already the market was starting to shift for jobs when I got out. So it took me several months. I was not able to arrange a job before I graduated from college. It took me months after before I had anything actually solid going. Although it never really occurred to me that it would take that long or that I wouldn't eventually get one. Going through those months of just interview after interview, hearing nothing back from people, those kinds of things, being able to transition and build the habits, which I know you're big on. I've checked a lot of your stuff out. So being able to build those habits that eventually will drive success and helping people level set and understand expectations of where they are and what's going to go on. Just getting those kinds of things is so valuable for making a successful transition into gainful employment and what may very well be the rest of your life, right? From after college onward. So I mean, you're obviously a pretty motivated guy. In high school, were you one of those rocking and rolling guys? You just always knew what you wanted to do, knew you wanted to be speaking to people?
Yeah, no, I'm laughing at that because my junior year of high school, I was actually given the news that I had a 0% chance to get into any four-year university.
That's encouraging.
Because of my grades were so bad. I had a 2.5 GPA on a 5.0 scale. I never broke 1,000 on the SAT. I got a 16 out of 34 on the ACT. So no, I wasn't motivated. I was motivated from a business standpoint, but I spent too much of my time hanging out with my closest friends and making a bunch of money, going door to door, asking if I could cut people's grass or clean their house, or just kind of, I was a young hustler, right?
Hustling,
and because of that, school fell on the back burner. And, I ultimately figured it out, got into school, graduated from Clemson in 2018. But the reason I had the 0% chance was because I wasn't surrounded around the right people, right? All of my friends at that time weren't really trying to get to the next level, and you are the average of the 5 people you hang around. And at the same time, I had a goal to get into a 4-year school, which I eventually did because that was a big setback for me of like, whoa. But my behavior was not aligned with my goals. So I always tell everyone, make sure your behaviors and your habits are aligned with your goal. But yes, kind of long answer to your question. Short answer, no, I wasn't always extremely motivated.
Well, I mean, so part of the thing, right? You say make sure your behaviors and habits are aligned with your goals. I think the other important thing is to make sure that you have goals, because
Yes.
So often, and I've talked about lots of guests with this about this before, but so often people don't concretely define what they want and don't test it to make sure that's actually what they want, right? They look around, they get their value system from others, this kind of second-handed approach to whatever it is, what you study in high school, college, even what initial jobs you go out for. You look at other people and you go, well, that's what a lot of people are doing, so I'll do that, right? Everybody's interviewing for, at one point, everybody was interviewing for investment banking jobs. I think that's less now than it used to be. But everybody's becoming a real estate agent. Everybody's doing this. Well, there's money to be made there. I should do that. And you go, but does that actually align with your values? And have you stress tested your goals to make sure that those are actually your goals? Because if you don't have a plan for your life, someone else, probably me, but someone else will have a plan for you. And that might not be aligned with your goals and all those things, especially when you're trying to form habits. If you don't start with the foundation, it's like building a house on sand. I mean, you can't. You gotta have it and go. So what changed for you? What kind of, just
Clicked, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think my friend group shifted a little bit, and I started hanging out with people just naturally. You're in high school, your friend group shift all the time.
Sure.
And the friends I was with, they started to tour schools, they started to get into schools, and ultimately, you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with. And so I realized, like, wait, this is actually something I kind of want to do as well. But then I did take an extra step and say, is this something I actually want to do, or is it because my friends are? And it actually was something I did want to do. Everyone around me is holding themselves to a high standard, and my standard's down here. And so it really clicked for me when I got that news. And it also made me think about, all right, what's everyone else doing to get into school while they're studying? They're asking questions. They're actually, doing SAT prep, all this stuff. And I was doing none of that, right? And so then it was just a simple solution of, here's the goal. Here's the, 10 things that they did to get there. Now let me just do those 10 things. And that could work anyway, whether it's, hey, I want to start a business. All right, well, look at somebody who started a similar business to the one you want to start. Ask them, hey,
there.
What did you do? Boom. Then you just check it off the list, right? And it's like, what I did can work in business, can work in sales, can work in anything. That was just a small example out of many that I've done there. But that was kind of what clicked for me.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a powerful concept, which is none of us wants to start from scratch, right? I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. And chances are I don't need to, right? I can go out and find somebody who's had some success and at least start with, okay, they've done this. That seems to be working. So I might as well start there and move and figure out if it works for me, right? So trying to pick a totally different topic, something simple, something everybody's trying to do. Lose weight, let's say. You go, well, what do the most successful people do? There's tons of research on it. We know what those things actually are. We know that for 80% of people, doing something as simple as weighing themselves every day and tracking what they eat will already start the process of getting their weight down, because now they're mindful of it. Now they know what's happening. Just those two simple habits, those keystone habits, will kind of bring about it. So starting there and moving on and kind of shifting your mindset to, okay, obviously they're doing it. So since they're doing it, it's possible to do it, right? That's number one. Is this possible? Can I actually do this? Well, hell, they're doing it. They seem to be happening. So why not give it a try? Why not start there? The mindset issue for me is a big one. I mean, I feel like, and it's so easy to lose your way when it comes to mindset, especially these days when we're just bombarded by toxic messages of all different kinds from people we know, from people we don't, the internet, whatever. How do you maintain your mindset? How do you keep it? I mean, not just stay positive, but how do you keep your eye on the prize, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And going back to your last point that you made about kind of following the roadmap of others. I mean, I don't know if you can really see it on the video, but there's books behind me, right?
Hmm.
There's podcasts to listen to, there's YouTube videos to watch, there's articles to read, there's mentors to talk to. So I think in 2022, like you should have zero excuse as to why you don't have success in your life, whatever that means to you,
Right.
because you literally have unlimited resources.
Right. Or why you're
I
not
can
at
pick
least
up
on an upward trajectory. Right.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, to answer the question of how I stay mentally sharp and positive, for me, I think it all goes back to gratitude. Every
Mm.
single day, I'm rooted in gratitude. First thing I do when I wake up in the morning is immediately write down three things that I'm grateful for. And then before I go to bed, my wife and I, we literally just like talk in bed. What are three things you're grateful for today? And it could be like, I'm grateful for this, like, cold glass of water. People down in Florida right now don't have water,
Right.
because of the hurricane. So
Right.
something as simple as that, right? And doing that every single day for the past 3+ years has just like completely shifted my mindset. And two, just kind of the basic stuff. Like I'm very, very limited on what I put in my mind. Like I really limit my time on social media. I don't really
Hmm.
watch the news. Sure, I'll turn it on just to see what's going on, so I'm not living under a rock. But I am very limited with what I put in my mind there as well.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I do is music. So I always used to just listen to whatever. I was a big hip hop guy, which nothing wrong with hip hop, but listen to what they're saying in the lyrics. Guns, violence, drugs, all this stuff. Like, sure, it's a good beat, great for the gym. I'm a big gym guy, but listen to that all the time, every single day, an hour plus every day isn't good for your mindset. And so
Yeah.
I've kind of shifted up like my music a little bit as well. And whether you're religious or not, like worship music's actually pretty solid because it's just so uplifting, so solid.
Yeah.
Even if you're just listening to instrumental, like tone and music actually have a lot to do with your mindset. And then the last thing I do is just continued positive self-talk. I read affirmations every single day. And there's a lot of studies in this. There's actually a study done by these two guys who were growing legal plants. I know you're in California, so they were growing legal plants. But what they did was actually had two studies. They did one where they talked negative to the plants, and then
Yeah.
they did one where they talked positive to the plants. And the plants that they talked positive to grew significantly higher and healthier than the plants that they talked negative to. Everything else is the same. The water, the soil, everything else is
Yeah.
the same. It was just them positive self-talk. And that was really mind-blowing to me to think about that.
Well, that's a message for us all to
Yeah.
take to heart. That and think about how we interact with other people, because that's the other side of it. Not just how you talk to yourself, which is crucial, right? Positive self-talk, turning the tide of because if, by the way, I mean, just as an aside, if we talked to other people the way that we oftentimes talk to ourselves, somebody would probably like cut us.
Yes.
Like we'd get a knife in the back right away.
Yes.
Because we don't talk to ourselves nicely. So giving ourselves, if nothing else, a little bit of rope, a little bit of leeway, a little bit of understanding, like you would to anybody else, we would probably vastly improve our circumstances. But when talking to other people, remembering the value of some positivity, of putting a little bit of a positive spin on it, of not looking at things as I suppose black and white is a big concept. Not looking at something as this is the worst, the most horrible thing you possibly could have done was X, and you're low and you're small and you stop, and instead looking at it as, well, that was a screw up. What did we learn from that? How can we move forward from that? How can I help you? Let's do this together. Let's partner. Let's have some fun. Or we just had an adventure, didn't we? Those kinds of moments, and reframing those kinds of things in our own heads are crucial. Talk to me a little bit about the importance of personal development, because we touched a little bit on that, the gratitude, stuff like that, but having a growth mindset, forming the right daily habits, kind of as you'd said, making sure your habits are aligned. Why are those things kind of crucial to you? Why do you think those are important?
Yeah, man. I think you got one life, right? So you might as well live it to the fullest potential that you possibly can. And I think it's very important to realize that you value what you invest in and you invest in what you value,
Yep.
right? So if you value yourself, you should invest back into yourself. And my whole story with this is I started investing heavily into my personal development in 2019.
Hmm.
Throughout 2020 as well, everyone was binge watching Netflix. I was investing heavily back into myself. And with that said, in the last like 3, 4 years, I've almost 5x'd my income
Good.
because of investing so much back into myself. And so that's kind of the importance of it. I always say, like, if you want to make more money, if you want to be more successful, first start with investing back into yourself. And then going back to what we alluded to earlier, I mean, there's countless ways to get started. There's books, there's podcasts, there's articles, there's mentors, there's everything you can do. And for me, I have a weekly checklist of things that have to be done related to my personal development. So you probably can't see it on the whiteboard behind me, but every week I have to listen to 3 podcasts related to personal development. It could be leadership, it could be sales, it could be business. 3 podcasts every single week. I read every single day, whether it's 5 pages, 10 pages, 15 pages. And then I work out every single day, right? I've been doing this for 2, 3 years. And because of that, your body and mind are tools that you utilize to create success in your life. And so the more that you can invest into both those areas, the more successful you'll be, which is just my full opinion there.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that my income went up so much was obviously I was putting in the work, but at the back end, I was investing so much back into myself that my skills grew, my character grew, everything grew during that time as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a component that occurred to me as you were talking about that. That's also the value of incremental change, right? That if you improve 1% a day, for 365 days, you're vastly ahead of where you were at the start. And I don't know if you can improve 1% a day. I mean, whatever, 365%. But the fact is that if you make little steps, if you do keep investing in yourself, you keep building that bank account up, so to speak, you're gonna end up with something at the end, something more than you had when you started. And those little bits of things start to add up. The weight of all those activities just compounds. And that's the power that everybody talks about, the power of compounding in actual investments and in personal investments. Especially with education, by the way. I mean, for all those kinds of things, because that value sticks with you, and as we keep learning. So you mentioned a little bit you've been able to increase your income substantially in the last few years. Your day job is sales oriented.
Yeah.
How do you balance that kind of work with your kind of side hustle? How are you doing that?
Yeah, it's definitely really tough. And I was just on a leadership call. I was leading one last night, just talking about how I balance it all. And it really goes back to looking at your calendar. So during the 8 to 5, I'm as efficient as possible. I don't know if anyone out there has heard of Parkinson's law, but it's basically that the time expands to what you give it. So if you tell yourself, I need to cut the grass in 30 days, it's going to take you 30 days. But if you tell yourself, I need to get it cut in 2 days, you're going to get it cut in 2 days. So for me, I try to get as much done as possible in 8 to 5 window, right? I think a lot of people that work 8 to 5, especially remote, it's like, oh, I work 8 to 5, but like if I work over a little bit, it's not a big deal. I can work after dinner. It's like, for me, I'm very strict of like, I have to get everything done by 5 because I need to jump in and start doing my side hustles.
Right.
So that's number one. Number two is just, as alluded to earlier, living by the calendar. So I have color-coded calendar, one for my own podcast, one for speaking engagements, one for being guest on different podcasts like this. And so I send myself calendar invites on Sunday, 6 p.m. to 7, podcast with you. 8 to 9 p.m. tonight, it's speaking. I'm not speaking tonight, but I'm prepping for a speech coming up.
Right.
And then same thing tomorrow. I have time blocks. And so that's what I challenge anybody out there. If you have a lot going on, first audit your time. When I started doing side hustles and jumping into different things, I was like, how am I going to find the time? And then I realized, man, I'm spending so much time on this. I'm spending so much time on TV. And so just dropping those kind of distractions, you'll be amazed by how much open free time you have during the week. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, a time audit, well, auditing anything, but a time audit especially, is kind of scary when you figure out how much time you've wasted. And I swear that the phone lies to you, that it says, oh, you only spent whatever, say an hour and a half of screen time today. You go, but that was 1 minute at a time checking my Twitter notifications or whatever it is that people do, because I don't have Twitter, but but checking my notifications and responding to something, but 1 minute at a time. Each of those minutes was a lost 3 minutes, let's say, because it takes you a minute to refocus on what you were doing and to get back into the flow of what you were doing, and all these interruptions that we have. And you go, actually, if I did Twitter once a day for a set 10 minutes, I'd be done. And nothing is going to happen in the world, because none of us have a job that we have to pay attention to Twitter all day long. Yeah. That it's going to actually make a difference. Same thing with email, right? If you audit your time and how much you spend and how you could be more efficient at it, just to compartmentalize and be more efficient, how can I do this better? We could probably all find the time to do the things we say we don't have the time for. And also, just as a question of priorities, if it is a priority for you to do something, it will happen. Right. And so when that's one of the things that I tell people is, don't tell me you don't have the time for it. Just say it's not as important to you as these other things, because that's what it really is. You don't want to make time for it. You'll make time for what's a high priority for you. The fact becomes, we say, oh, I don't have the time for that. And what we're really saying is, I don't care enough about it over these other things. And maybe we're giving time to things that we don't care about and don't realize we're doing. And that's why the time audit is crucial. But at the same time, to think through what it is, why we want to, you know what, I want to spend, and be honest with yourself, I want to spend 2 hours watching Netflix tonight because I'm just fried. You go, okay, but that's a higher priority for you. Recovery at the moment is a higher priority for you than reading that book or taking that walk. But you need to ask yourself whether that's actually the best way to get what you're getting to, right? Is Netflix actually the best way to recover, or would you be better off taking a walk around the neighborhood and putting your earbuds in and listening to a personal development podcast, like the We've Got a Problem podcast, plugging my own show. So we're kind of moving right along here, but I want to talk about something that I talk to everybody about, which is the kind of overrated, underrated stuff. What do you think the biggest fallacy is in your space, personal development space, or even in sales in your day job? What do you think the biggest fallacy is that everybody buys into, but it's just a load of crap?
I think that everyone needs to be motivated 100% of the time to be successful. I think that's a load of crap, because I think on the days that you're motivated, you can easily put in 110%. But what are you going to do on the days that you're not motivated? So that's a big one for me. And that's something that I've really came to a big realization about a year and a half ago. People would always be like, man, you're so motivated. Well, I'm actually not that motivated. I'm not that motivated today coming off the weekend on a Monday, but I still showed up today, had 5 meetings, set up 2 meetings for next week. I'm on this podcast, prepping for a speech tonight, not because I'm motivated today, but because I'm disciplined and I'm committed to being the best version of myself. And I honor all my commitments. Like, I did reschedule this one because it was supposed to be yesterday or tomorrow. Right. But I was like, I'm going to honor my commitment. I'm going to keep it the same week. I'm going to show up today with 100% energy. So I think just separating discipline and motivation, you don't need everyone. Where do I find motivation? It's like, no, don't find motivation. Find discipline, because that's how you're actually going to create success.
Yes. James Clear, I think, posted last week on his Instagram about, and he's the Atomic Habits guy for people who don't know, but James Clear posted a great thing about authors and what it takes to be a great author. And one of the kind of summary concepts that he came to was, most writers don't have constant great A-level inspiration, as I would put it. They aren't always writing perfect prose, but they have a system in place that schedules them in to do the work. And they've given themselves permission to do bad work if bad work comes out, but they aren't just sitting there waiting always for the A-level inspiration to come along before they start working. Because if you're sitting now these days at the computer and it's like from 9 to 10 every day, that's all you did, right? And I'm just using an example. From 9 to 10 every day, I'm going to write my book, work on my book. You don't have to, not even a set number of pages, although that might be a good goal to have. But I'm going to sit there and write my book from 9 to 10, no matter what. Even if I'm just exhausted and hungover from the night before because I went on had a business dinner and all this stuff, whatever it is, but 9 to 10, I put on my little writing shirt and I sit at my computer and I do my writing. You might actually finish something instead of just waiting for something to come along. And being disciplined is huge because most people aren't, not always, right? Some days you feel great, some days you don't. But if that's just the way that things go, if that's my habit, I go to my meetings, I work out, I go to the gym, right? That's a perfect one. Go to the gym every day. I go to the gym every day, every single day. It just happens. And it's just the way it goes. I've got my gym bag, I put my gym clothes on and I go.
Yeah, every day.
Yeah, and I don't always get to the gym and go, "Wow, I'm glad I'm here."
Yes.
There are a lot of days. And this is not going to be a personal best day for me, let's say, right? I'm a little sore, a little whatever. Fine. May have overdone it yesterday. Fine. But I'm there and I still go through with it. You don't just walk in. Once you're there, why are you going to leave? It's like, I'm here.
Yeah. You showed up every day, no matter what.
So, okay, along with that, the next question is, what's the most underrated concept? What are people overlooking? What are we missing?
Man, that's a really good one. What are people overlooking?
Yeah.
I think people are overlooking just the resources that I've talked about a couple of times, but just the resources that are already out there. Again, books, podcasts, like the stuff is already there for you. It's just you need to actually take the action to do it. So I think that's so underrated. And I think podcasts are really underrated. And I say that not just because I have my own and taking the time to be on yours and trying to plug yours as well, but I do think podcasts are very underrated because so many people are like, man, I don't have the time to listen to podcasts. And it's like, all right, did you drive to work today? Well, yeah. All right, you got 20 minutes. If you work from home, did you help your wife with the dishes? Well, yeah, I actually did. Okay, there's 15 minutes right there, Right. And people are like, how do you listen to 3 podcasts a week if you're doing all this and you're working so much and doing 2 different side hustles and speaking? I'm like, well, when I'm driving to the engagement, I may put in my headphones. If I help my wife with the dishes, I'm going to throw in some headphones. 20, 30-minute podcast, just like this one. It's really that simple.
Yeah.
So I think podcasts are extremely underrated and just overall the information that's already out there. You don't need any new information. There's so much that's already out there. Just take advantage of it.
Yeah, take advantage of it. And man, get a variety of experiences, get a variety of exposure so that you can actually make up your own mind, because that's so often you read, we're subject to reading the latest book and going and changing our opinion to that, right? You read some investing book and it goes, the secret to this is the efficient market hypothesis, blah, blah, blah. And you go, great. And then you read the next book that goes, that whole thing is utter garbage. Here are all the reasons that it's wrong. You go, well, that's interesting. Now I'm starting to think about it and move on. My thing is I listen to audiobooks while I work out at the gym because most of the time audiobooks, they say the same thing 4 or 5 times. So you don't have to be paying rapt attention to everything that goes on. You get the concept, you move along, and you're doing something else that doesn't require mental effort. It just requires physical effort.
Right.
You're in it and getting something. And again, broadening your horizons. So the last kind of question that I wanted to get to is, what do you see as the biggest hurdle to people realizing their full potential?
The biggest hurdle for people realizing their full potential?
Well, I would say you work with coaching clients and stuff like that. You talk to a lot of people.
I think it's self-awareness. Like no one really takes the time, as you touched on at the very beginning of this episode, to realize what they really want, why they want it, and what it's going to take to get there, right? No one really takes the time to think about those 3 things. And I think that's holds you back from your potential, because you talked about this already, but people set goals based on what others are doing. And then you fit into a mold that's really not you. Yep. And then someone else designs your life, not yourself. And so I think people don't reach their full potential because they don't take the time to seek self-awareness. And that doesn't just come from one day on the beach or one hike or one 8-hour car ride. It comes from every single day. You should be seeking clarity, asking yourself these questions. What makes me happy? What am I driving towards? Why do I do what I do? Like, these are daily questions you should be asking yourself, seeking it daily.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Chris, thank you so much for joining me. Folks, if you want to know more about Chris, you can check out the Next Level Minds podcast, follow him on LinkedIn and Instagram, and visit his website. Links to everything are in the show notes as always. Until next time, I'm Andrew Wallace, and we don't have a problem. We've got an opportunity.